They say the sea never gives back what it takes, and in the far, wind-bitten edges of Ireland, some debts are written in salt water and bone. The Brennan family never believed in curses, not at first. But the curse believed in them. Their story begins in the spring of 1871, when the first of their children reached his 16th birthday and disappeared before the sun rose again. His name was Michael, a tall, spirited boy who could climb the highest cliffs and dive into the waves without fear. That evening, the family gathered for a modest celebration. A loaf of bread, a small cake, and laughter that almost felt normal. Almost. The wind outside howled harder than usual, rattling the shutters like restless fingers. But the Brennans, used to the moods of the sea, thought little of it. By morning, Michael's bed was empty. No footprints. No signs of struggle. Just a faint smell of brine in the air, though the tide was still far from the house. Bridget Brennan searched every path to the cliffs, her skirts heavy with wet sand. Thomas, her husband, went to the harbor, asking fishermen if they had seen his boy. But no one had. It was as if Michael had stepped out of the world between one heartbeat and the next. They told themselves it was an accident, a tragic misstep into the waves. They buried an empty coffin, hoping the ritual would quiet their grief. But deep inside, a question gnawed at them. Why had there been no scream, no splash, nothing? Years passed, and grief dulled but never disappeared. The Brennans had other children, Eileen, Patrick, Siobhan, and the youngest twins, Maeve and Declan. Life went on, until 1875. Eileen's 16th birthday came, and with it, a chill that crept into the house days before, seeping into the wood, into their bones. Bridget refused to lose another child. She locked the doors, bolted the shutters, and sat in Eileen's room all night, a kerosene lamp burning low. Her eyes stayed fixed on her daughter's breathing, steady and calm. But in the moments before dawn, her own eyelids grew heavy. It couldn't have been more than a blink. When she looked again, the bed was empty. The blankets lay folded, the pillow smooth, and resting on it, a damp strand of seaweed, cold to the touch. Thomas told no one about the seaweed, but the village found out anyway. Word spreads faster than truth in small places. People began to avoid the Brennan house. In the tavern, whispers grew. It's the sea. The sea takes what it's owed. Always 16. Never younger. Never older. The Brennans stopped going into town unless necessary. Bridget's hair began to turn white, though she was still a young woman. Thomas aged in silence. And every birthday after that felt less like a celebration and more like counting down to an execution. By 1880, Patrick Brennan was next. This time, Thomas swore he would beat whatever fate had been stalking them. He moved Patrick into a room above the barn, away from the house, and hired 2 men to guard the doors through the night. The storm that evening was relentless. The wind screamed through the thatch, and rain lashed the walls in sheets. Around midnight, the guards heard it. Not footsteps, not voices, but a deep wooden groan, like the bones of the building shifting. They rushed inside, calling Patrick's name. The bed was empty, no sign of forced entry. On the wooden floor, burned into grain as if by heat, was a single wet footprint, bare human, and steaming faintly in the cold air. From that night on, the Brennans lived in constant dread. Their 4th child, Siobhan, became quiet and withdrawn as her 16th birthday approached. She barely ate, barely spoke. Bridget tried to comfort her, but how do you comfort a girl who knows she will not live to see 17? On the eve of her birthday, Siobhan whispered to her mother, "Ma'am, if they come, don't try to stop them. It's worse if you do." Bridget begged her to explain, but Siobhan only wept. When morning came, her bed was empty. The window was still locked from the inside. Only a faint, rhythmic dripping could be heard from the ceiling. Though when Thomas climbed up to check, the attic was bone dry. After Siobhan's disappearance, the Brennans withdrew from the world entirely. The twins, Maeve and Declan, were all they had left. Born only minutes apart, they were inseparable. As their 16th year drew closer, the village grew restless. Some believed the family was cursed because of something Thomas had done in his youth. Others swore that the Brennans' land was built over an ancient burial, and the dead were reclaiming what was theirs. The priest came twice, blessing the home, sprinkling holy water. It changed nothing. The night before the twins' birthday, the air was unnaturally still. No wind, no waves, the kind of silence that presses against the eardrums. Thomas and Bridget stayed awake in the twins' room, each holding one of their children's hands. They talked until the lamps burned low, until the line between waking and dream began to blur. And then it happened. In an instant, the hands they were holding were gone. The bedclothes fell flat. Thomas lit the lamp, and the room was empty. No open doors, no footprints, no sound. Only a faint scent of salt water. And in the center of the floor, 2 seashells, one white, one black. By morning, the Brennans were alone. 7 children gone. No bodies, no explanations. The house became a shell, just like its owners. Bridget never spoke again after that night. Thomas would sit on the cliff for hours, staring out at the gray horizon, as if waiting for the sea to give him something back. It never did. And yet, the story did not end there. For years after, on certain mist-heavy nights, villagers swore they could see figures standing in the shallows, young, pale, unmoving. If anyone called out, the figures would simply dissolve into the waves. Even now, more than a century later, travelers sometimes visit the ruins of the Brennan house. They say if you stand in the center of the old foundation on the night of your 16th birthday, you'll feel a hand take yours. And if you let it, you won't be seen again. The sea does not forget, and some debts are never paid in full.